Shakespeare's cause of death remains a mystery. What little factual information we have of his death comes from an entry in the diary of John Ward, the vicar of Holy Trinity Church in Stratford, where Shakespeare is buried. In the diary, Ward notes that Shakespeare, Drayton, and Ben Jonson had a merry meeting and it seems drank too hard, for Shakespeare died of a fever they contracted. We know people just don't catch fevers from drinking, unless the drinks in question contain some type of infectious bacteria, and given the hygienic practices of the day, this could be a possibility. Yet we know that Shakespeare amended his will only a month before his death. Is it possible Shakespeare knew he was dying? Like with so many other Shakespeare mysteries, some scholars think that yes, not only did he know he was dying, they go on to suggest this is why he retired early and amended his will. We will get into another possible reason for this sudden change in a moment. But first, let's look at some other possibilities for his early death, or as some might say, death conspiracies. Shakespeare's own son-in-law John Hall is purported to claim, "I have formed the opinion that it was more likely than not in the nature of a cerebral hemorrhage or apoplexy that quickly deepened and soon became fatal." There are three reasons for this. Firstly, the hurried reconstruction and interlineated clauses of the will not allowing time for it to be copied afresh before signature. Secondly, the earliest and clearest impressions of the Droeshout frontispiece of the first folio show outstanding shadings, suggesting marked thickening of the left temporal artery, a sign of atheroma and arteriosclerosis. And thirdly, such a termination is quite common in men who have undergone such continuous mental and physical strain over a prolonged period as our actor-manager-dramatist must have been subjected to throughout his, undoubtedly, strenuous career. Richard Burbage, who daily shared the same theatrical life, himself died of such a seizure after 24 hours illness in 1619. It has to be pointed out that of all people, Hall had the most to gain from a sudden death explanation. Hall was not only Shakespeare's son-in-law, he was the family doctor. To note that the playwright's sudden death was caused by mental and physical strain may have been an attempt to absolve himself of his father-in-law's death. He may have been trying to deflect blame in order to save his own reputation. As I said earlier, Shakespeare amended his will a month before his death. This fact has led some scholars to believe the man was in very poor health and at death's door. They point to his shaky signature as proof of their claim. The problem with this is twofold. 1. Shakespeare's signature always appears shaky, and 2. Shakespeare's youngest daughter had just become engaged, causing Shakespeare to adjust what he felt she was owed and to include provisions for any future children she may have. Author Simon Andrew Sterling takes the prize for the most outlandish idea. In his 2013 book, Who Killed Shakespeare, Sterling not only suggests Shakespeare was murdered but was killed by Protestant spies, Shakespeare being a closeted Catholic, in order to curry favor with the court. Sterling seems to have forgotten that Shakespeare's theatre group was called the King's Men, because he loved their plays, so killing the king's favorite author would not be the best way to curry his favor. Life in 17th century was surrounded by death. Despite the myth that 17th century life was short, the fact is, it was possible to live a long life, if you were lucky. Death could come in many forms: war, disease, the plague broke out twice in Shakespeare's lifetime, poverty, bad hygiene, and religious persecution, just to name a few. Yet despite all of this, we know from records that wealthy people with access to a proper diet did live to see old age. So this again makes us wonder, just what did Shakespeare die of? Was it cancer, tuberculosis, or God forbid, syphilis? Let's take one more look at the diary of John Ward. At first glance his words may sound silly, but records from 1616, the year of Shakespeare's death, inform us that a new strain of typhus was spreading across England. The name of this mortal infection? The new fever. So yes, Shakespeare may have died of a fever after all.